We're talking about the biggest symbol of India's consciousness, the new vision that India has gotten, the rediscovery of India, the renaissance of India, and how Ram and the Ram Mandir symbolize the united conscience of the country, Bharat. But on the contrary view, something distasteful is happening. On your screen are these headlines that we put out of these 4-5 media channels, publications that keep putting India in a bad light. And take a look at these examples. For example, it is Ayodhya Ram Mandir, India's Prime Minister inaugurates the mandir on the ruins of Babri Masjid. Modi inaugurates the temple on the site of Babri Masjid. Modi inaugurates the contentious Hindu temple in a milestone for India. There has been a Supreme Court verdict that has taken place. There has been much water that has flown under the bridge. There is a grand temple that was under construction for years that has been completed. There is, in fact, an agreement that has been had between the Muslims and the Hindus. In fact, there is land that has been provided just adjacent to the Ram temple for a grand mosque in Ayodhya. So why is it that these foreign media channels and agencies continue to carry forward the same Ghisa Pita narrative for India? Who is it that is wanting to showcase India in a contrarian light? Why is it that there continues to be a India bashing brigade that wants to show India as a Hindu-Muslim country, as a Hindutva majoritarian country that does not treat its Muslims right? So let's start this conversation. Joining me on the telecast is my editor-in-chief, Rishabh Gulati. And Rishabh, the very premise that we have moved on, the country has moved on, the people of the country have moved on, and we took a look at how this mega ceremony took place, and there is a united front that has been put up by the nation and its countrymen. So why is it that few of these foreign media channels are still hell-bent on carrying forward again and again this very old narrative?
So who are these people? Al Jazeera, shocking. BBC, shocking. CNN, shocking. Now you can take it forward to what? You can guess further, right? New York Times, Washington Post. What are they doing? Okay? They're doing the same vile things because they got away with the same vile things. Hire Indians to cuss about India. Okay? They're not interested in anything else. In fact, your CV becomes how much you can bash your own country, and then you get paid a salary by a foreign media agency. So these people are well known. The problem, Megha, is not that they are doing what they're doing. And what is it? I mean, the epithets, the prefix, the suffix, it is just boiling. Okay? The Ram Mandir in Ayodhya is not being built on the site of the Babri Masjid per se alone. It is being built on the site of the birthplace of the Lord Ram. Okay? If you want to say Babri Masjid, then you have to provide the caveats that there existed an Ayodhya before the Babri Masjid. You provide the caveats if you want to do fair journalism, but you're unable to provide caveats. In fact, they're so fearful that they're deeply worried that they hire Indians to do this. And the Indians are more than happy to get paid by foreigners to bash their own country. So some things change, some things never change. These people are known to us. Their names are published along with their pieces. Okay. Now the fundamental problem that we have to now address is that this will not change. They will keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it because it just boils in them. And the only problem, Megha, that we have is that as a country, okay, if you are representing the logical point of view, if you are saying, no, hang on, this is a good thing, a catharsis that is taking place. We are moving on as a country. If you had a property dispute in the family, it's being settled. That's good for the entire family. We have to move on. These kind of cauterizations are very important. If you're saying that you are all Godi, what is this then? What is this? Okay. It is not surprising that the editorial policy is this. That is understandable. What is beyond contempt, despicable, disgusting is the people who take foreign payrolls and write this. You want to write nonsense about your country, okay? You want to put the epithets and prefixes and suffixes, okay? You do it on your own accord, no? Why do you want to work for BBC and Al Jazeera? Everybody knows who owns Al Jazeera. Who pays for the BBC salaries? Where does the money come from? Okay? Which Qatari royal family runs which news channel globally? So everybody knows how it happens. And I just want to make a last and simple point. In our country, if we are saying that we are going to be a $5 trillion economy, if we are saying that we are going to have to rise above these things, we will have to learn to accept that there are going to be forces with plenty of money in their bags who are going to do everything possible to tell you that you're no good, divided people, and you cannot heal your wounds. It's not possible. And beyond that, I think everybody else already knows this story. It's not shocking.
Rubinder, if we compare the situation 200 years ago when the British came and ruled India, the very easy policy that they took forward was divide and rule, play the Hindu-Muslim card, and they were very successful in doing that. And in fact, if we draw a parallel to from what is happening, as Rishabh mentioned, there are a number of these journalists. They are in fact Indian origin journalists. They are living in India and they are writing all this nonsense about India simply because they are getting more money from these Brit media channels, from these United States media channels, from the Qatari families, the Al Jazeeras and the Guardians of the world. So something similar was actually happening 200 years ago as well. There were a number of these Indians that were sellouts. They got these hefty pays by the British to work for the British, to beat Indians, to beat, to defile them, to work on the wages of the British, for the country to be divided, for the country to not be united, for the country to not get its independence. Do we have now a larger conscience that the British may have done it 200 years ago to us? They are not going to be capable of doing it to us now.
So thank you, Megha. No, very deep. I mean, the point that you're raising, it's a very, very deep point. But yeah, I think that, 200 years ago was a long time past. In the world of today, in the era of today, they cannot get away, but still they'll keep trying, if not trying. See, that's their habit in a way. That's their routine. That's what they are used to when they look at India. And by when they, quote unquote, I mean a large sections of, Western society, Western media, the way they look at India as a land of the past, snake charmers, always in tragedies, never been able to overcome those, etc. And amongst the headlines that you're reading, for example, like I think CNN was talking about Modi's temple, will it, or this is the Wall Street Journal, I think, saying, will it unite Hindus or divide India? Right. So that's the kind of a narrative and perspective that is being put out. By design, some of it we could be charitable and say by ignorance or by laziness. As Rishabh raised a very, very good point. He said that when they're talking that this temple is built on the Babri Masjid, they forget to mention, in all fairness to the news, that the Babri Masjid was built up upon an earlier temple which was then destroyed, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a sequence to it. It's not that there was a mosque and this mosque has been now replaced by a temple. So the full context has to be there. So partly maybe lazy journalism, if you could say, with bias coming through some people. But yes, a lot of people sold out because they think that that's the narrative or that's the news which sells, or that's the news that their readers would like to read. So that's another element, I would say. But coming to the world of today, also, again, I think, yes, we'll have to get a little bit of a thicker skin because these things will go on, but will be reduced. The more we are emerging, the more we are in the sunlight, the more we are in the global tables when we are discussing things, the more when the world sees where India is and is going to, okay, the narrative will change.
Okay, all right. Joyita, the narrative, has it begun to change? Is it only these few individuals, few organizations that are working to damage the image of India, and does this matter to India and the rest of the world? Because when we take a look at the presidents and the prime ministers of the world who are coming and venerating India, coming in, reveling in the prosperity and the strides that India is taking on a global sphere, wanting to build these strong associations, then does this narrative really count?
Well, Megha, when you are looking at the media outlets that you are speaking of, they are Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN. I mean, these are so-called mainstream legacy media. I don't know about Al Jazeera, but the others are mostly mainstream legacy media. And they have got a pathological hatred for India, and for several reasons. So, but at the same time, we have been living with this, and now we have started ignoring their diatribe. So, and when you are absolutely right, when you see the United Nations Secretary General, I think, has given a message that it's like another Diwali for India. Now, when if you go to social media in particular, when there are so many foreigners from so many different countries, they are talking about what India is witnessing is a civilizational moment. So you see, the whole point is that BBC and all we can afford to ignore, primarily because these outlets are no longer the primary source of information for a large section of the world population, including majority of them in the West. So what they are spinning beyond a point, it is a fact that Western world's policy towards India, American policy, for example, New York Times, Guardian, and all of these papers, they have had zero influence. When it comes to the level of policy, except for maybe some wokes in the State Department, nothing is working. So I think we can really ignore them as long as our relationship, our government's relationship with the other countries and all, they're on an even keel, and they understand, what India's importance is, what India means to the world and to them. You see, India is a rising power, and it's a major power. Okay, in fact, it has already risen to a large extent. I mean, does it really matter, say, for example, after 5 years from now, does it really matter what the Guardian is saying in 2024 when India is the third largest economy in the world? Will it really matter to anybody? Nobody.
Okay.
They can do a bit of harm, not beyond that.
Okay, all right. Gautam Mukherjee, then, as years pass and we are in a transition and we are looking at becoming a position, being at a position of, global prowess. Is this then a foregone conclusion that as our economy strengthens, so is our media also going to be strengthened? It is going to become more powerful. It is going to perhaps eclipse these so-called established media organizations that have been present for, you talk about almost a century. And then there is a hope that this narrative can be changed, because even while we say that we can ignore it, it doesn't bother us, there are certain groups, there would be in the United Nations that there is the Kashmir issue, and there are the Muslims who are minority and who are being attacked and so on and so forth. There will be an issue where there are a number of these caucuses within the United States Senate who are going to continue this narrative. We are going to have the likes of a number of these Rana Ayubs of the world, and there was this another Senate member from the United States, and she continues to build this narrative about Muslims continuing to be hated, and they continue to be at a vulnerable position in India. Will we be established enough in the next few years that our media is going to eclipse this falsehood that is put out by such channels?
Well, I think it's happening already, and a lot of the world outside is listening to Indian media on their phones, on the internet, and in some cases on cable. Now, let's understand, taking on from what Jayita said, most of the people who are bashing us are either bankrupt or on the brink of bankruptcy. They are very dependent on handouts and donations from propagandists who are inimical to India. And if they are paid, they play the piper's tune. Now, the other thing, what these people and all the articles have a theme of so-called secularism. Now, that bird has flown. What secularism meant and what these people mean is, as long as you keep on Hindu bashing, you are secular. Now, this might suit the Congress party and certain other people in the opposition, but it doesn't suit the bulk of the Indian people today. So the government of India has moved on and says that, look here, we are promoting Hinduism, yes, but at the same time, we are not doing anybody else down. Your Muslim religion is yours. Your Christian religion is yours and you're free to practice it. So how does secularism mean bashing Hindus and suppressing Hinduism just because Nehruvian India did it for decades? So that is really a past tense kind of argument, but these people are continuing with it for whatever it's worth. The other rather, pathetic aspect of it is that they have so little viewership and readership elsewhere that they're banking on the millions in India, including those who support the opposition, to give them some kind of financial boost, which is why they always write on India and get Indians to do so.
Okay.
Megha.
Okay. Patrick, quickly, an opinion from you. So, why is it that there is not a collective call by Indian media, political will to then go about calling out the wrongs in the West? They talk about the Hindu-Muslim, the so-called Hindu-Muslim divide in our country. They talk about how Muslims are living under fear, how there is Muslim genocide that is taking place in our country. But why don't they reflect what is happening in their backyard? And why shouldn't we stop from helping them reflect what is happening in their backyard? Why have we continued to stay at a position that we are saying, we don't care about what happens in your country, we are only bothered about what's happening in our country? But why don't we end up targeting guns at them and tell them the pathetic monopoly, the colonization, the genocide, the butchering of millions and millions of people, indentured labor, slave labor, that's your legacy that you have left behind?
Megha, you're right, and I think in certain way it has started, the counter to their propaganda by telling the truth of what they have done in the past. And I'm very confident to say that NewsX is one such channel which has done a phenomenal job. Others are also following. I think. Let me tell you, if you have asked me to put it in perspective, even in the house of a gangster, there will be dogs, guard dogs. For the guard dogs of a gangster, the gangster is a good guy and the policeman are the bad people. So he is supposed to bark every time the policeman comes. So similarly, I'm not saying that the Western countries are gangsters and their media houses are dogs. But the reality is that for a long time, they have told that India is this, India is that. Suddenly, they cannot tell to their own audience that, look, this country has emerged as the fifth largest economy. It is sending missions to Mars and Moon and going near to the sun. Suddenly, they cannot say that this country has been able to take Vikas, Firasat and Vigyan together and have been successful in embedding them. Yes, it is true that during G20, a lot of things were told to the West, about certain issues. The fact that African Union was made part of G20 is actually a slap in the face of the West, which never wanted something like this to happen. But let me tell you a larger context. I think beyond the point, no one cares today what the West is talking about. We don't need validation. I think today it has been a tipping point in our civilizational awakening where we would not require any kind of validation from the West anymore. I am more concerned about what is happening in my country. Megha, I'm sure all of us agree to this. A decade back, it would have been impossible to presume hundreds of millions of people will watch a Pran Pratishtha in a temple live on TV. Today, you saw the manner in which the whole country is watching what the Pran Pratishtha. And frankly, I mean, I was watching on TV. I was not in Ayodhya, but I had literally tears in my eyes when the Pran Pratishtha actually happened. It looks like the GT was resonating. Ram was actually smiling. I mean, I'm more concerned about how the transformation is happening in my own country, which has become the third largest ecosystem, for startups, which has become a harbinger of entrepreneurship at the micro enterprise level, which has created templates of vaccination or, direct benefit transfer, which is talking about Ram Rajya in terms of collectively taking together everyone. You saw today a spiritual resonance of the entire country together, in spite of all the fissures and fault lines in which the West have tried to capitalize for a long time. Today, they collectively failed. And therefore, I think our focus should be in terms of promoting what good is there in our country.
Okay.
Of course, you should at times focus on that also and tell them what wrong they did. But what Prime Minister said today, Megha, after the Pratishtha of the Ram temple, what next? You need to create the Ram Rajya. You have a pledge for the next 1,000 years.
A united vision, a united direction. Where is it that the country is going to go? And the Ram symbol is actually a collective form of what India, what Bharat represents. Quickly, a word from you, Rubinder Sajdev, before I let you go. But you're talking about India rising. You're talking about India being the 5th largest economy, $5 trillion economy. And there you also have it that there is this... the West is, it's a difficult task for them to digest it. It is also difficult for them to see that a third world country is now coming face to face and challenging them to taking on the #1 numero position, whether it is about our space, our technology, whether it is about our startup economy, whether it is about digital India, whether it is about vaccine Maitri. So there is, on the face of it, of course, there are strategies that are being planned out, there are associations that are being built, there are diplomatic ties that are also being forged. But there also would be a feeling of insecurity, a feeling of competitiveness, because at the end of the day, there can only be one superpower.
Absolutely, Megha. Quick bullet points. In fact, the point which you said is a trap, a danger for us ahead. And I'll give China's example. But before that, you see, we have to be mindful of this. Though we are all saying that we should be more thick-skinned, not bothered, but at the same time, we should be bothered to figure out some ways to counter this. Because what is happening? The accolades that we are getting are from the governments of these nations, the US government, the German, the English or whatever, etc., and the corporate CEOs. They are all saluting the rising sun. Now, what happens with this media, howsoever we may say that they are not widely, influential, but they're influencing the common public opinion in the US, the common opinion in Europe. People there are not tracking the news every day. What that ends up doing is that if the public opinion in these countries keeps on building up, that India has challenges of human rights, etc., then these publics are the ones who pressure their lawmakers, the congressmen and the senators, and say that take some stance against India. That's where it completes the circle and comes back to harm us. One.
Yes.
Secondly, exactly to your point. See, China was and has been the world's #2 economy, growing and all. It became very aggressive in its diplomacy, right? The West was watching out, and given the COVID, it got a chance to trap China in. The danger for us is that exactly the question you said right now. When India reaches #3 and from 3 we want to go to 2, we can expect countries or blocs to gang up against us, use any which tools to gang up against us and try and isolate us and hobble our journey. That's the danger long term.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.